Okay, so we just did all these adjustment layers to make this look really blue. That was cool, but now we're going to delete those, and I'm going to show you what also might be another common occurrence for some of you and a good use of your adjustment layers. So here we have our model, and she's on a swing, and the swing is nice up here because these nice metal links, okay, they blend in rather nicely with the colder background, but then you've got this screaming yellow here, which doesn't really lend to the photograph much, okay? It competes with the model's face, it competes with the scar, I mean, it competes with everything. So our goal here is to use our adjustment layers to get rid of our links, okay? Now, there's always more than one way of doing this. You could use the hue saturation adjustment layer or the black and white layer in this case. I think either one will do the trick. So let's use the black and white one, okay, just because we used it before. So now what you can see is as I go in here, as I use the black and white one, I can adjust the colors, and I really was thinking about trying to make the links as you know, bright or as light as the other one. But as I start to adjust them, it is not a lot of a... Oh, there we go. So it's really the yellow, when that makes sense because they're yellow. I can make them a little bit brighter, at least to match these. But now, you may be saying, okay, that's great, Mr. Weisbrod, but I don't want her black and white. I just want the links black and white, right? Well, that's easy, actually. It's much easier than you think. But in order to do that, I need to introduce to you a thing called layer masking. Photoshop has a thing called layer masking, which is extraordinarily powerful. It's really, really cool. Every layer can either already has or can have a layer mask. Now let me just show you what layer masks do by actually going back to our original here for a second. I'm going to go to our original layer. I'm going to go down here. Go away. And I can add a layer mask just by clicking that. And you can see all of a sudden I've got the layer mask there. Layer masks do something really, really cool. As soon as you click on the layer mask and you can see that it's highlighted there in the layers palette, it allows you to paint in transparency. Let me say that again. Layer masks allow us to paint in transparency. So if I just go and grab a brush, and it's important I make sure that I got the layer mask selected. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to flip-flop my black and my white colors. I'm going to take this brush, make sure it's at 100% opacity, and I can just start painting. And notice the background starts to disappear. Now take a look at the shape that I've got there, and then take a look at the preview. Oh, you can see what I did. I just painted black. And wherever I painted the black on the layer mask, okay, it went to transparent. But here's the really cool part. This is infinitely readjustable. So if I go back and I flip-flop and I paint white, I can get my background back. The background itself is actually never deleted. You're just telling the computer, here I want it to be transparent. It's really kind of cool. You have to be very careful about this because if you don't select the layer mask, you just click on the layer and then you go grab the black and you start painting with it, okay? Oops. That's bad, right? Yes, because guess what? It didn't make it transparent. Why not? Because I wasn't painting on the layer mask, I was actually painting on the layer itself. That's why, okay? So let's undo that. So now we can do the same thing with our adjustment layers. Oh, this can become very, very powerful. So let's just say I want to go to my black and white, and I do not want everything, obviously, in the background to be black and white. So I can grab my black brush, click on the layer mask, and as I start to color, paint the black in, I start to get all my color back. And what I'm doing essentially is I'm telling Photoshop that right in this area, I want this adjustment layer to be transparent. It's very powerful. It's very cool. Now, obviously, I can sit here and paint forever, okay? But I can also do something. I can be smart, work smarter, not harder, right? So I'm going to go back to my layer 0, and I'm going to build what we call a selection. And a selection is essentially a series of pixels that you can dump color into. So I'm going to go over to this tool here, which is called the Quick Selection tool. Click on that, and I'm going to select the background. So I'm just going to start painting here. I'm just going to click and drag. And what it does is it looks for edges. So you see how it snapped to the edge of her clothing there? Pretty cool. I'm just going to keep clicking. And every time I click, it's just going to add. So first I'm just going to try and take care of my background here. And we'll worry about getting in a little bit more later. Oh, see now, notice it took out her sleeve there. That's okay, but we want it to leave the links here. So I'm going to hold the Option key down, which means negative, and I'm going to say, no, 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 I want that back, thank you. And it's going to go, oh, okay. And it's going to start bringing it back. And then notice it went too far up here. Okay, so now let go of the Option key, and I'm going to say, no, I do want you to take care of that, though. And then it does it. So there we go. Negative, get that back. Okay, and it's thinking, get her hand back. All right, that's not too shabby. Let's go over here. Oops, see, now it took the yellow links completely here. So now I'm just going to go negative here. Now, a lot of times when you do a quick selection like this, not going to be perfect. That's okay. That's okay. You know, we're going to adjust it later. And that's the beauty of something like this, is because it does have infinite adjustments, essentially. So now I've got a good selection. So now watch this. I can go back up to my layer adjustment here, okay? And I can say Edit, Fill with Black. And it fills the whole background with black and leaves the links. So now whatever adjustments I do with the links here, okay, let's go to Select, Deselect to get rid of the selection. You can see that some of them weren't perfect. We're going to go and adjust that in a second. But you can see now I can adjust the brightness and stuff of the links, and it's not going to affect my background. How cool is that? Right? I mean, that's really awesome. So now, in order to kind of adjust my selection here, because you can see that there's still some yellow left, I just basically need to paint that in. So I'm going to make sure my mask is selected, get my paintbrush back, and then I want to paint, and if I paint black, you can see the yellow comes back. So I want to flip-flop the colors by clicking on this little arrow here, just like that. I'm going to get my white back, and I'm just going to go back in here, and I'm going to use the brushes. And you can adjust the brush sizes up here, or you can use the square bracket keys on the keyboard. That's how I'm doing that. And I can just go in here, and I can just redefine my edge a little bit here to make sure that none of the yellow is showing. Okay. And notice it went into her skin a little bit. There's a little thing there, so let's get the black back, and I can paint the color back into her skin very carefully. And as soon as I start to see yellow, whoops, flip-flop, go back with some white. And that's what's really cool about this masking situation is, and the layer masks and how they work, is it is completely, okay, and I mean completely, infinitely variable, undoable. If I do this for 3 days and I hate what I do, I can trash the layer and start all over again. But let's say I've done a ton of work with the healing stamp tool, or I've done a ton of work with the clone stamp tool or something. I don't have to lose all that work because now it's on its own layer. Okay? So let's take a look at one last example of where you might want to use something like this. Okay? So let me save that and close that. I've got another student's portrait here. Unfortunately enough, it's here. And we've got a major problem with this, and we talked about this a few days ago, so let me open this in Camera Raw. Okay? After I adjust my exposure and everything, and I started working in color balance here, I've got a big problem. If I color balance things to be neutral on one side, then they're really yellow on this side. If I get the blue to be neutral, then it's really yellow over here. If I get the yellow to be neutral, then it's really, really blue over here, right? Why does that happen? See, now the yellow is neutral-er, and this is really blue. Why does that happen? Anybody? We went over this. What do you think this was? What do you think happened here in this photograph? Yeah, it's all about the lighting. On the left, you have tungsten-based light, and on the right, you have daylight coming in through a window. So guess what? The camera doesn't know what the heck to do. It chooses something in the middle and says, I hope this is going to work. You're right? And so it basically chooses neither. So if we adjust for one, then we leave out the other. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually adjust for the most neutral skin tone that I can. But if I do that, then this is really yellow over here, and this is really blue over here. So let's open the image in Photoshop, and now what I can do is do two different color balance adjustment layers. So I'm going to add in a color balance layer, okay, and let's see if we can get rid of our blues, especially in the highlights over here. And it's cool because it shows you what's opposite of blue is yellow, okay. Push and pull things a little bit, you know, so you have to make some adjustments, okay. But if I add some yellow over here, that looks good. Take some green out, add a little bit of red, okay. Warm up the wood a little bit. Click on my midtones, do something similar here, okay. Now the wood on the background is actually looking, it's not looking too bad. But notice this has gone really yellow, and so has her face. So all I really need to do is take a brush and start to paint black in the layer mask for this color balance. Let's get a big brush here. Now, the other cool thing about layer masking is that it will also allow you to fade. So once I get into here, okay, well, see how she starts getting blue in the face, literally? But I don't want it to be a really rough transition. So if I'm doing this, right, and then all of a sudden you go in here, it's a really rough transition, isn't it? So what I want to do is I can take care of this here like this, but then I want to take my brush, and I'm going to take the hardness of the brush, I'm going to set it all the way down, okay, and then I'm going to take the opacity of the brush, I'm going to set it at probably about 30 or maybe even a little less than that. We'll try it and see what happens. And so now what I can do is I can start fading the edges here so you don't see that wicked transition too much. Okay? Now if I go in and I click on my mask so that we can see the mask only, you'll see how I'm starting to add some fades, some lighter transition areas here. Okay? So now once I've got this side looking pretty good, I can go back and I can add in another color balance, and then I can go over here and I can try and start getting rid of that orangey color that was there by maybe adding a touch of green, some cyan. No, that's not really working. Get rid of some yellow by adding some blue. There we go. But we want to start matching it to this, so actually I kind of want to add some orange. But then my biggest problem is that as I add some orange and stuff to match the two sides, her ear is going really red here and all sorts of other stuff. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing, and that is I'm going to take my color balance, I'm going to take a brush, let's go back up to 100% opacity, and now I'm going to start painting a mask here. Okay. So that, whoops, wrong way. Now you can see that I can start making some color changes here, and it's not going to affect her ear. Now I might even say, you know what, her face needs some different colors, or let's lighten up specific areas. So I can go back and add a curves palette, and I can throw some lightness up on her there, but then I can click on this and say, you know what, I don't want this background to get too bright. So I'm going to go in with my black brush, and I can paint out the adjustment that I made there on the background with the curves, and bring that down and darker a little bit. And actually, if I make this darker, it doesn't look so good. So let's just make this one, and lighten that up a little bit. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? And whoops. Let's flip-flop the white there. I got a little bit too much on the arm. Smaller brush will help us out here. That looks pretty good. In fact, what I probably should do is another curves and bring down this, the side over here, so that my highlights aren't quite so bright. See that? And then I can take my brush with the black and I can paint that off of everything else. So you can start getting into, I mean, look at that. I got one layer for her, but then I've got 4 adjustment layers to start bringing out certain pieces of the photograph. But look at our, okay, so here's our original. You see how I, whoops, well, I didn't even turn off the bottom one. So here's our original. Blue splotch, real dark, okay? And that's the start, obviously, in just a few minutes of the changes that I've been able to make with these adjustment layers, all working in coordination with each other. Now let me say one last thing about this. You start getting a bunch of things in here, it's going to be hard to keep track. Obviously, already I've got 2 curve layers and 2 color balance layers. So what I really recommend, and I mean this, guys, because this is, you're going to ask me, you're going to be, Mr. Weiss, but I don't know, something's wrong, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know what's going wrong, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say, I don't know either. So what I highly recommend is naming your layers. So this right here, okay, this affects the right back wall. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to say right back wall curves. Boom. Then this one over here, this affects the left side, okay? Left half curves. Color balance right here for the right. That's, no, wait. For the left of the wall, so color balance. Left side, and then here's the color balance for our right side. And you know what? Again, they're infinitely variable. So I come in tomorrow and I say, you know what? I didn't do the color balance right on this right side. It's kind of muddy and it looks kind of gray, and this is much more orangier, and I like the warmth of the orangey, orangey wood. So I can go back into this color balance here and I can start pumping some more red into it, or some more magenta into it. Nope, that doesn't look good. Or some more yellow to try and match those colors. There we go. You see, and now they're looking a lot better. And I can do that 2, 3, 4, 5 days from now. And then I can decide 3 days later, I liked it better the way it was, and then try and take it back. They're completely and infinitely variable, and you're never destroying your original background image, which is kind of cool. Okay? Does this all make sense to everybody? Okay? I know it's a lot, but adjustment layers and masking are very powerful tools when it comes to adjusting your images. You want to lighten somebody's eyes, and only their eyes and not the rest of the face. This is how you do it. Okay? All right.